Hello again. Today it's Thursday? Yeah, today's Thursday, which means that I'm coming at you again with another academic video that I find perfectly stimulating and fascinating, but I'm not sure whether any of my audience do. Let's continue. Today we're going to be unpacking the word landscape. What is a landscape? But before we answer that question, what do we think of when we hear the word landscape? For me, it was originally maybe like a U-shaped valley or like something very green, rolling. This is like probably the internalized picture of Englishness I have in my head. But it's like this untouched area, probably green, probably very natural, that is kind of separate from humanity or human influence. Of course, cityscape is also a form of landscape. I wouldn't say that's where my mind goes first, but again, it's this kind of like picturesque... You know what I mean? I feel like that's a landscape, right? But geography urges us not just to stop there, but to think a little bit more critically. Why should this be a typical landscape? Why is landscape such a static image in our head, seemingly unchanging? Where are the boundaries of this frame, this picture that we're putting landscape in? And what are those boundaries doing? Why are those boundaries made? With such a mindset, we're able to expose very, very human factors that play into our perceptions of landscape and the way that landscapes, even though they're seemingly untouched and conjured out of nothing, are really constructed for the human eye by the human mind. Picture this green U-shaped valley I was referring to, this kind of like national park, Yorkshire Dales image. Of course it's a big, wide, expansive place of natural beauty, but there are so many human factors, political factors, that keep it as it is, that keep it static, that keep it natural. We're thinking about like building regulations, planning permission, the tourist board that controls the ways that humans are able to go through the landscape anyway, keeping it very a-human. Especially when you see national parks that bring in a lot of money, people are expecting us to see a certain kind of landscape that they already have in their mind. Lo and behold, they actually come and see it. So the word landscape in geography is basically a reference to the ways that we are able to like perceive images that are appealing to us, I suppose, in the natural or the built environment, and then uncover their human kind of productions. I was first exposed to the idea of landscape in my undergraduate degree, obviously, when we had to read a book called Landscapes of Privilege, The Politics of Aesthetic in an American Suburb. It's a book by two writers, James and Nancy Duncan, 2003, and they've changed the details of this town. This town that they study, which is also where they're from, is called Bedford, which is in rural New York. And so they set up this study with like the town of Bedford, and the way that Bedford is able to present itself as this beautiful, rural, New England-esque town, with a lot of history, with a lot of like culture. What they uncover, however, is very, very active workings of the American class system. Regulations and barriers to buildings, only being able to have a specific kind of gate, the way that farmland is on show, but only in a very aesthetic way. Housing markets that price out certain diverse would-be families from other class or race backgrounds. James and Nancy Duncan also uncovered some racial inequalities. For example, the people that maintain this landscape, because it has to be very humanly maintained if it is so artificial as they assert, is all of this like Latinx labour, who aren't allowed to live in the town because they're priced out because of the class system. So these people have to migrate, maintain a town that is not theirs for the white people that live there, and then go back. It was also just another interesting dynamic. And so the book very powerfully shows the privileged and uneven, skewed ways that Bedford has created a very, very historic identity in maintaining this New England aesthetic that's completely fake. However, purely because it exists in this built environment, purely because this is the way that Bedford, this town in New York, is, it's perceived to be natural, it's perceived to be the way things are. So the landscape is made by humans, even if it features a lot of natural green. And what's more is the meaning that the landscape has is only really, again, for the humans. But here's probably the most important part of the video. Landscapes are not natural. They're human ideas projected and made into a natural or a built environment that produce values and meanings that reinforce the human ideas that built them. So we've got like this cyclical relationship between humans and landscape. Landscapes of Privilege is getting on to be kind of an old book now, but it's still influential because it constantly reminds us that the places we inhabit and the places we use can either be spaces of comfort for some and spaces of exclusion for others. And there are extremely conscious decisions and productive factors that play into that and make it so. When I think about where I grew up and where I went to school in Bath, when I was younger, we had the Southgate shopping centre, and it was this big, brutalist piece of architecture where people, you know, lived and shopped or whatever. And it was torn down because Bath is like such a middle class, such a historically aesthetic city that relies a lot on tourism and this reputation of being golden and Georgian and Regency. This whole thing was torn down, and now we have this, admittedly also stunning in a different way to brutalism, shopping centre that completely fits and blends in so naturally with the rest of the city. But it's not natural. It was a decision made for aesthetic reasons that has a myriad of consequences with it. Let's look at regulation, material paper things that control the built environment and what we can see and understand through figures. Is a little bit more like the geography of a few decades ago. And so as we come forward into the contemporary age, we see more things like posthumanism and actor network theory that really highlight the ways that like landscapes, the built and natural environment, exist more in a dialogue with humanity, that landscapes affect humanity in a much more diverse and diffuse way in the meanings that they create, that the humans who tried to create these landscapes didn't originally intend for. Furthermore, we need to pluralize the way that we kind of look at this like productive process of making landscapes and look at the ways that they can also be appropriated, how the presence of certain politicized bodies, movements, and ulterior politics more generally, purely by existing in a certain location, whether that's temporary or not, can really change and appropriate the politics that originally made those landscapes. And then this whole new meaning comes out that exposes kind of like these hidden, very normative, dominant ideas. So landscapes, seemingly historicised or naturalised visions of how the world is, the result of very human, cultural, social, political struggles and the kind of like vetting of different ideas. Which one is going to rise to the top? The one that we're able to see, ideally subconsciously, written into that landscape. And it's being able to see it is what this kind of like lens allows us to do. See you tomorrow.